Sassy Serval, Sexy Serval, Super Serval, Sensational Serval, Stupendous Serval, and Skillful Serval. These are the many names you guys gave me in our community post of what build guide should we do next. So we're talking about our Lightning Princess Serval. Obviously, she's not our Lightning Queen because we have Kafka for that already. So to follow through on my promise, I'll be telling you as a free-to-play player why you should be building Serval and how to build her in general, because she hits some massive damage like this and honestly is not a bad option for both Memory of Chaos and Pure Fiction. So honestly, I know she's low on the tier list, but she's not as bad as everyone makes her out to be. But let's go ahead and hop into a kit breakdown first so we can get a better understanding of how she works in general. So as far as what her kit does, guys, on the skill attack, it's going to be targeting one main enemy and hitting adjacent enemies. This is going to be having an 80% base chance to shock these enemies, and this will shock the enemies more than Sekapoko was shocked when he didn't get into the Weathering Waves closed beta test.
3 paths to failure for Wuthering Waves.
It's okay, Sekka. Wuthering Waves will survive just like One Piece Bounty Rush did. We don't need to use your fake Primo gems for this game, okay? Anyways, with that slight jab out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about her ultimate because it targets all enemies and it'll be also enhancing the amount they're shocked by for 2 extra turns. One thing I want to make really important here is actually the energy cost for this ultimate. It's only 100 energy. This is one of the lowest energy costs in the game, meaning you can get the ultimate back up super fast, which we'll talk about in the later section of this video. Now, hopping into the talent, this is going to make her do additional damage to all enemies that are shocked, meaning if you use a skill on them, you shock the enemy, she'll be doing additional damage to those enemies. But that's really only a partial look at her kit. Let's go ahead and look at these traces now and the bonus ability she's able to get. Her first bonus ability is actually super important, Rock and Roll. It'll be increasing the base chance to shock an enemy by 20%, meaning it goes from that 80% to a 100% base chance, which means she really doesn't need that much effect hit rate to actually guarantee shock the enemies. Next on this list here is going to be Strong Vibration, which gives her 15 extra energy when entering the battle. This is really only good for getting that initial ultimate up to really start the battle out right. And finally, her last one's going to be Mania. Upon defeating an enemy, she's going to be increasing her own attack by 20% for 2 turns, which means you do have to get kills with her to get this buff off. This is pretty good as well, but I would say the best 2 ones are the first one and the third one. As far as how I'll be leveling up her traces and everything, I would definitely focus on leveling up her ult first, because her ult is honestly the thing that you're going to be using most of the time, especially if you're going to be using her in Pure Fiction like I do. Number 2 is going to be her talent, because this will just increase the all-around damage she does when you shock the enemies, and finally will be the skill attack. But with that little kit breakdown out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about what her best in slot light cones are, because there's actually a variety of light cones you can use on her. Obviously, her best in slot light cone is going to be Before Dawn. This is Jingyuan's signature light cone. It increases her crit damage. It'll also be increasing her skill and ultimate damage by a certain percentage as well. She doesn't take use of the follow-up attack, but honestly, she gets enough stats already with just the first 2 buffs here. Alternatively, you could run Make the World Clamor. This will make her get her ultimate up really fast at the beginning of the battle, and will also be increasing that ultimate damage by a lot. But as far as free-to-play options are concerned, there are a lot of free-to-play options actually. The Seriousness of Breakfast works really well on her because it'll be increasing her damage by 24%. It'll also be increasing that attack by 8% if you're defeating enemies. Another really good option here is going to be the new Pinacone Light Cone. First of all, it gives you free attack, and then it'll be increasing your crit damage if you're facing 2 enemies of the same type. And where I like using her at, that could come in clutch. But I'm gonna be honest with you guys, none of those are my favorite light cone on Serval. My favorite light cone for Serval is actually Passkey, a 3-star light cone. At S5, this will be giving you additional 12 energy back whenever you use a skill. You want to be using her skill every turn, you're getting massive energy back. You can get like a really solid 2-turn ultimate if you're running this correctly, even a 1-turn ultimate sometimes if you're, like I said, using this correctly. And especially for like Pure Fiction, this could come in major clutch. Now with all the light cones out of the way, and before we hop into how she's actually built, if you've made it to this point in the video, then you might consider subscribing to the channel because you might like what you've seen so far, and you might like my funny haha teehee Sekapoko jokes or Atsu jokes you've seen in other videos, maybe potentially, right? So hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and let's go ahead and talk about those stinky little relics now. So hopping into the relics now, guys, she is going to be wanting to run a 4-piece Sizzling Thunder set. This is, I think, to be the best set on her because of the fact that it does give a lightning damage bonus at a 2-piece, and at a 4-piece is going to be giving that extra 20% attack, which also affects her dots as well because she is viable on a dot team. We'll talk about synergies a little bit later in the video, but super good set. I recommend this set. This is gonna be really good. But if you don't want to farm this set, because this does come with a caveat of having to farm for the Knight of the Purity Palace set, which honestly I don't use on any of my things anymore, but if you plan on getting Aventurine, then maybe this is a good set for you to start farming if you're going to use Serval with him. But obvious alternatives here would be like a 4-piece Musketeer set. That works really well. And one set I want to bring up that's actually really good, especially in Pure Fiction, is going to be a 4-piece break set. Yes, 4-piece break set is super huge. Why? Because at a 4-piece break break set, you get 3 extra energy for every enemy you break. There are so many enemies on the field, you're getting a massive energy back for every time you break the enemies. This goes hand in hand with the planar sets we're going to talk about now, which with the planar set, if you're running the break set, then you can also run the 2-piece break set here as well, so you're getting as much break damage as possible here. Now obviously this is not necessary. The main reason we're running that break set is because it does give her the 3 extra energy back for breaking the enemy shield. So you don't have to run that 4-piece set because it does have a high speed requirement to get the extra break effect in there. You can run an easier set, a more free-to-play friendly set, which I think would be Space Sealing Station, because Space Sealing Station is really easy to get. You get Ageless and Kill from this one world here of Simulated Universe, and it's honestly the easiest stage of Simulated Universe you can do, so super good set to run here as well. Obviously other sets you can run would be something like Glamoth or even Ageless too, because it does give an attack boost for the whole team. Now let's talk about some of these main and subsets now. On the boots, I recommend running speed or attack percentage. Now you don't have to run speed here if you're using with a Bronya, because Bronya just advances forward action automatically, but if you're not using with a Bronya, I do recommend speed here. For that body piece, I do recommend attack percentage, crit rate, crit damage. Any of these will work. Obviously attack percentage is giving you a good amount of dot damage, while crit rate, crit damage is obviously just giving her some extra upfront damage here. Now for that rope, I do recommend energy regen rope if you're using her like in a break comp and you're just needing a lot of energy to spam ultimates. If not, run attack percent here, you'll get a lot more damage out this way. And then finally for that sphere, you're going to be wanting to run a lightning damage boost sphere here or an attack sphere. There's not really too much of a damage difference here. It's about a 3 to 2% difference in damage here. It's not that big at all, so don't really worry about that. Hopping into those substats now, you're going to be wanting to focus on getting attack percentage and speed. Some effect hit rate's nice as well, and some break effect can be nice if you're running her on a break effect set and a break effect comp. But I would really focus on the first two that I mentioned, that being attack percentage and speed, because you want her dots to be doing as much damage as possible, and you want her to be as fast as possible as well. If you're running a crit build with your Serval, you would want to switch out that break effect and effect hit rate for crit rate, crit damage, so just keep that in mind if you want to run her as a crit rate build. But with that being said, and I mentioned it earlier, let's go ahead and talk about the Eidelons now. Her E6 is obviously the strongest one, right? She's going to be doing 30% more damage to shocked enemies if you have this. But one really important one is actually going to be E1, E2. She has some pretty solid E1, E2s. At E1, she's actually able to hit multiple enemies, which means you get a little bit of extra energy back with E1. And E2 is the really big one, right? Because whenever her talent's triggered, meaning you are attacking an enemy that's already shocked, that means you're getting 4 extra energy back. And if you're using her in Pure Fiction and all the enemies are shocked, then you're getting a ton more energy back. If you're breaking the enemy shields, this means you're getting at least 7 energy back for each enemy that you proc with this. And with the energy regen rope, this is going to be massive. Not to mention if you're using skill, you're getting the extra energy back from that. She just works really well in these type of scenarios. And finally, guys, we're going to talk about why you should be building her as a free-to-play player, because I'm sure that's the question you all want to know. Now, I'm not going to be doing a showcase or anything like that like I normally do, because of the fact that honestly I have a couple Serval showcases on the channel already, so go check those out if you want to. Anyways, guys, let's talk about why you should be building her. So obviously I'm just going to go off the gate here with my #1 reason. She is really good for Pure Fiction. There are so many enemies on the field, and she gets so much energy back from breaking enemy shields if you run her the way that I showed you in this video, that she is able just to consistently ult and deal damage to all the enemies, especially with the dot thing that's out right now. The dot Pure Fiction works really well. Obviously the last Pure Fiction that we had worked out really well for her too, because she ult a lot, so that's really good too. So she's able to take use of a lot of these buffs. Now we don't know what's coming next in Pure Fiction, but I would assume that it's still going to be very AoE based, and she's an AoE goddess. She does a lot of AoE stuff. Hell, I'm getting 30k plus scores with a level 70 Serval on my team, okay? Like, this is just a really free-to-play friendly unit to build, first of all, and on top of that, she's just really good for getting you extra currency in Pure Fiction, you know? But let's go ahead and talk about reason number 2 now, is just her versatility, kind of. The same thing I said about Gleniphan. She's not as versatile as Gleniphan. I just want to let that be known out the gate, right? But she can be a nice source of lightning damage. You get her absolutely for free. And on top of this, she's able to be put on like dot teams, so that works there. You're also able to put her on like crit-based teams as well. So there are a couple different team options that you can throw her on, and her being a lightning DPS, let's be honest, you're not using Arlon. You probably miss Kafka, so what other lightning unit are you going to use? You going to pull for Jin Yuan? Okay, buddy, have fun with that one. He requires a lot more than she does. Really, the only thing you have to really go for outside of Serval would be Acheron. I mean, and she might even play well with Acheron. Wink, wink. That's all I'm going to say with that. You know, debuffs equal damage with Acheron, like Dr. Ratio, surely, right? But these are all the reasons why you should be building her as a free-to-player. If you enjoyed today's video, then subscribe. That's going to do it. I'll catch you in the next one, guys. Like if you like, dislike if you dislike, and bye. See you later.